Welcome everyone to another Tuesday Trust Engine interview. On behalf of Dave and the whole Trust Engine team, I'm Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon, and I am extremely excited for today's conversation. The future of real estate commissions and how it affects you, whether you're a loan officer or a real estate agent who is watching this. I think it's probably the biggest topic that's going to impact the future of your business that's not getting a lot of conversation right now. And I'm excited because I am part of a weekly mastermind with 6 of the smartest people I know in real estate. And we had a conversation around this that just fascinated me. And I realized how little I knew about it. I realized how little this community knew about it. And I just knew I had to twist their arms to come in here and have a discussion about it. One thing I want to throw out there is just a quick update. I've had a lot of people asking questions since we had Phil Jones on for Scriptapalooza and for our Exactly What to Say Scriptapalooza follow-up. If you're interested in seeing any of the replays, getting the transaction, the teacher notes from Scriptapalooza, or if you're interested in learning about the 2 live Exactly What to Say certifications that Deborah Bird and I are running, one in Phoenix and one in Dallas, just go to my personal link tree. It's toddbookspan.me. It's got a link at the very top for Scale Mastermind. It's the mastermind group for realtors. I would encourage you loan officers who are looking to get educated to help your realtors. It's led by these 2 of these smart guys that are going to be introduced momentarily, as well as all the other information that I just mentioned. Again, it's just Todd, I can't even say my own name today. I'm so excited. toddbookspan.me. So without further ado, we're going to start this conversation. I've got 2 people on here, one who has been a friend of mine for decades, and another who has been a friend of mine for a little over a year, and but just 2 really smart guys. And so they are 2 of the co-leaders of the Scale Mastermind group. Eric Daniels is the owner of Rethink Home in Texas, outside of Fort Worth, if I'm accurate about it. He's also a Tom Ferry coach. And Scott Gibson is also a Tom Ferry coach and is the productivity coach for the Lawton team, which is a team based out of the Phoenix, Arizona market, and they're $1 billion team. And I'm just super excited to have both of you. So welcome, Eric. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate that, man.
All right. So I think the biggest thing that we need to highlight is why are realtor commissions in jeopardy, and what's going on with the Department of Justice? What's happening that's going to put their commission at risk, which is going to impact the whole industry, not just realtors, but the loan industry, and really more importantly, the home buyer as well.
Absolutely. And I'll take that one. So there are 2 pending class action lawsuits. Burnett versus v. NAR is class action lawsuit specifically within the state of Missouri. It has a trial date of October 16th. It names NAR and several other real estate brokerages, and then the several MLSs within Missouri. That one is certainly a model for the larger one, which is Muller versus NAR, which is also a class action lawsuit. It is impactful on a national level. The discovery deadlines are September of 2023. Motions are due late October, and the trial date will be set around then. That names NAR, several national real estate brokerages, and approximately 20 large multiple listing services. That's the one that everybody's really watching. They're both relative, they're both important. Even though the one is specific to Missouri, it will set the tone for the national level. So I pulled the information directly from the Department of Justice website. There are a lot of great sources, but if I'm going to be the source of a source, I want to make sure the source is accurate. So what is the lawsuit about? The lawsuit alleges that NAR has, and I'm going to read this so it's specific, NAR has promulgated a series of rules, policies, and practices that have been widely adopted by its members, which have resulted in lessening competition among real estate brokers to the detriment of American home buyers. These rules, policies, and practices include the 4 specifics. 1, the commission and concealment rules, prohibiting the MLS from disclosing to prospective buyers the amount of commissions that the buyer broker will earn if the buyer purchases a home listed on the MLS. The second is the free service rule, allowing buyer brokers to mislead buyers into thinking that buyer broker services are free. Again, this is the alleged problems within the lawsuit, right? Filter rules and practices, enabling buyer brokers to filter MLS listings based on the level of buyer broker commissions offered to exclude homes with lower commissions from consideration by potential home buyers. And then the fourth one, which usually gets everybody's toes curled, especially if you're a licensed real estate agent, limiting access to lockboxes only to NAR affiliated MLS members. That's, that is as concise as I could make a very long brief by the Justice Department. And, in more layman's terms, since I don't play an attorney, or I'm not an attorney, I play one on television, is they want the MLS to disclose that it's, whatever the percentage is going to the buyer broker. They want the buyer broker to receive that compensation from the buyer to be, identified. And they want everybody to have access to the MLS lockboxes. And basically, it's a lot of disclosures. There's a lot of speculations on how that's going to impact the industry.
So ultimately, they really want to make it so that the seller is no longer paying the buyer's commission fee. And the potential harm is that it's going to cost the buyer out of pocket to hire a realtor to represent them to buy a house. Is one of
certainly one interpretation, right? One interpretation is that they don't want the seller to have to pay the buyer's broker fee. More importantly, I interpreted it as they want that to become a negotiation point. So they want to make sure that the buyer has the conversation with the buyer's representation and saying, hey, I'm going to help you. I want to get paid X amount. It's negotiable, just as if a listing is negotiable. Eric, kicking it over to you.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand where this comes from, Scott. I mean, what was the discrepancy with this lawsuit coming forward? Do you know the behind the scenes of what the problem was?
I started reading the get to know the person who started the lawsuit, and then I stopped. And the reason why I stopped is because I want to always, as a coach, make sure that we're solutions based. And there's going to be plenty of memes, plenty of Facebook posts, plenty of social media extrapolating the end of whatever. That's not the place where I want to sit. And I think that while it's important that there's disclosure, I think that's healthy. I also think that the reason why some of these things exist is because when they didn't exist, it was ripe for manipulation and it was chaotic and it affected too many things. I've coached agents in markets where it's not as consistent. And in my opinion, it is to the detriment of the consumer, but that is my opinion. So
I applaud your efforts, man. You've definitely done your research. I appreciate that. Makes us all look good. All right. So my next concern, obviously, is, let's say that the lawsuit, whether or not it goes through, the concern I have is what steps can we take? What can we do to take action now? Right. So this is what I'm hoping the most of the audience today is listening to is what is you and I, Scott, as coaches inside of our space, and me being a productive agent, by the way, and a team owner, what can I tell my people today to get to 2.0 of being a buyer's agent?
Well, I definitely have some key behaviors for real estate agents. And, I broke mine out into 2 segments. Eric has combined his in more of a team version, which I think is going to be great for all of us. So I'll go through mine and then I'm going to kick the same question back to Eric. So for me, the key behaviors and activities real estate agents need to start scaling and executing to be out in front of any changes. Again, we don't want to speculate what could happen. We want to be concise, and these are the activities to scale forward, right? 1, probably should start with what the brokers, team leads, and coaches have been saying for years. Master the art of introducing the existing buyer broker agreements that everybody's already had access to. And for the most part, do not use until they go to contract, until they write an offer. 2, a real in-person buyer consult with an agenda, with an understanding, not just a laxy daisy. I'm going to show you 16 to 25 houses and we'll figure it out as we go. This isn't the 80s, right? Let's be a little bit more concise, consistent. Understand, real estate agents need to understand and be able to communicate the value that they bring as a professional when talking to a client. This is something that I like to practice in my coaching and especially my group coaching. Agents should be able to answer, what makes you a better agent than my neighbor? What makes you a better agent than my friend of 20 years? What makes you a better agent than my nephew, right? One of the people I look up to in this industry very much, closes 500, 600 transactions a year. He only considers his competition to be the family member that is part-time, right? So what does an agent have as their value proposition, which is the fourth thing that an agent can be doing is that as an agent, understand what your time is worth, right? Understand what the cost per lead is, plus the cost per conversion, the cost plus of showing, the cost of your assistant, the cost of your team split, your broker fees, the cost of the profit you are budgeting for in each transaction. How do you know what you're going to charge if you don't know what your cost of doing business is? Those are the things that I think that agents need to really get a good grip on. And that's something that we really push at Tom Ferry. It's something that we push on the Lawton team, is understanding what your costs are. So then that way, when you're negotiating, you're not losing. There's nothing worse than, if you're racing to the bottom and then all of a sudden you realize the bottom is that you're paying to get the deal closed. That's not cash flow. That's just bad business. Eric, now my question to you is, what should agents be doing? What should lenders be doing? Sorry, Todd. Todd, did you want to get a question in? I'm sorry. We're just
no.
totally
I'm just fascinated. I mean, from a loan officer perspective, just think about all the things that Scott just said that are applicable to you, right? Understanding your value proposition and how you show up, how do you relate, right? It's for lenders. We always complain about the discount lender who's going out there and reducing, running a reduced commission rate sheet so that they can steal your loan. And that's really more where the realtors have been getting historically a 3% commission. Now, as Scott said, they can sort it, and sometimes you get paid less as a buyer broker, but ultimately they're going to have to sell better, right? They're going to have to connect better and have a process, which is what Scott just laid out. And so really just goes back to the reason I think you as a loan officer need to be aware of this, because I surveyed after our call we had last week at Scale Mastermind, the real estate agents that I knew and the lenders that I knew, and very few were aware of this. And so I want you all to be the tip of the spear to have the conversation with your real estate agents that you're doing business with. And then I think that you also need to think about how it's going to impact your business when we get to that part. And then lastly, before, Eric kind of gives his ideas, is you really need to think through, right? Really just step back and think about how you can become better as a result of this conversation.
That's spot on, Todd. Thanks for the transition. Yeah, that's perfect. So what's the problem? Let's talk in layman's terms. I can't get into the legal stuff. My concern right now is a problem is I've now got to go to my buyer and ask for them to pay for my services. Now, a negative mindset would be, by the way, these are all actions you're going to be able to take. Okay. Whoever's on this call today is going to be able to take this, write this down, and implement and be the leader for this before it even happens. And it makes everybody's business better. Okay. So a negative mindset right now would be, I want people to spend money on my services. That's a problem. Stop getting customers looking at the thing that spends their money, and let's talk about what it looks like to be a positive mindset. So if you are goal-oriented with your solutions for things that actually work, you get the customer to ask, what actually works? Inside of the space of an LO or a buyer's agent, what actually works to get them to their solution? I'll give you an example. I don't want people to spend money on some nebulous of what the public thinks an agent does, because to be honest with you, buyer's agent doesn't get a good rap right now inside the public, but the money spent on them is an investment. It's a proxy for, this is how we get results. What do we know as buyer's agents and LOs that actually works in the space of getting people to their solution? So you've got to ask, what's the truth in this? And I wrote this down. I'm going to read it. The client will pay for the people that knows how to approach their problem, knows the data, and has a solution for their problems. I'm going to read that again. The truth is the client will pay for the people that knows how, the person that knows how to approach the problem, AKA communication, knows the data, does research, and has a solution for their problems, has experience getting to the finish line. Okay, so I love to explore the idea of how the LO and the agent relationship can create, like, picture a menu at a restaurant of items that gets results. So the clients are going to be looking for what's the biggest bang for the buck. And we talked about this before. The cost benefit analysis is a really fancy term that I learned in corporate America. Cost benefit analysis is, if I spend $1, what's my results? And that's what the customers are going to be looking for. And that relationship between an LO and a buyer's agent is going to be essential, because the communication is, I need you guys to understand this is going to cost you money now in order to get into the loan. And we're going to get into that a little bit later as to what the detriments are. I know that Paul Hurley had a question from Facebook earlier talking about the detriment of the consumer. We'll get into that. So let's talk about the things you don't know and be curious. What can you do to be more transparent? Let's be together in brainstorming instead of saying, I believe X, Y, and Z. Just coming into the space with a buyer's agent right now and just saying, I would love to take an hour of your time to explore what it looks like to have the impact on your business, that you're going to have to ask that buyer for that commission structure. How does that affect the loan? How does that affect their affordability rate? All of these things are questions we've got to ask now. So there's a threat coming, and we know it. Picture it as an asteroid, if you will. Great. Is there anything you can do about that thing coming for you? There's not. So making panic decisions doesn't bode well. You've got to take time and create a relationship with that buyer's agent, loan officer, if you're an agent, to get a business partner. This is not a us and them scenario. You guys collectively can come together and lead the way. So that's partially where I was going to go with this. I have a few elephants in the room I could go into, but how does that sit with you so far, Todd?
You know, it sits great, because I think that's the biggest challenge that loan officers are facing now, is how to be a more valuable partner to their real estate agents. And so I think that, you know, first off, it's this conversation. And then second off, it's the whole idea of what actions can be taken together. Because loan officers, you have to think about this. If there's already MLSs who are changing how they're allowing their realtors to list the properties, and then allowing them, if I'm correct, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, to separate out the buyers and sellers commission if they choose. And so think, if you have to have your buyers, how many of your buyers are tight on cash? And think now all of a sudden, if they have to pay 3% out of pocket to the realtor who's representing to buy the house, in addition to their down payment and closing costs, how is that going to impact your pipeline of buyers, especially first-time buyers, who really is, the group that's being impacted from an affordability perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great segue to go back to Paul's question. And so Paul's question is, can you explain further why this action would be to the detriment of the consumer? So, we could really tape back, but I'm pretty confident I said this may be to the detriment of the consumer, but I'm pretty confident in that statement, because it's not the action of disclosing or requesting compensation that's a detriment. To me, my concern is the elasticity of the time frame from when this activity happens to filter down to the non-full-time, non-professional agent who gets the majority of the information from social media, who isn't doing anything extra to learn, right? They do 3 transactions a year, and every one of them are already a mess, and now it's going to be a bigger mess. So getting them up to speed on correct education, then educating them, just because they know it doesn't mean they can teach it, doesn't mean that they can explain it, right? So getting them up to speed, getting all agents up to speed on how to educate the consumer that, yes, you've bought and sold 5 homes over the last 40 years. I totally understand what you're talking about. Now, things are different this time around. There have been some changes. And that's where the rub's going to be, is that 6-7 months, could take a year. It could take even longer for all the consumers in the buy cycle, right? So From 2020 to 2022, we saw a consumer bicycle in most markets of less than 90 days. Now we're seeing consumer bicycles pushed out closer to 6 months. That means that the consumers who started this process tomorrow are going to end differently in the process in January or February. What they thought they were going to have for closing costs versus what their closing costs could be, right? Everything's going to be a negotiation. That's going to be a learning curve. Now, I look forward to professional agents and professional loan officers being a part of that process, right? If you're in this industry full time, I am 100% supportive of it. If you're in this industry part-time and you cause chaos, maybe not so much, right? It depends on what your intentions are. But that's, Paul, I hope I answered the question. That's where my concern is that it's going to be that learning curve, that misunderstanding on, the first agent that has to explain to the buyer, like, hey, so this is, and they're giving their spiel, they're giving their value proposition, they're presenting a buyer broker agreement that has terms on it. And that consumer is going to say, I've bought and sold plenty of houses. I've never seen this form before. I don't understand why we're doing it. This is wrong. And then ghosting, hanging up out of non-education and jumping to the next agent. And hopefully that agent is consistent with the message, consistent with their value proposition, consistent with the forms that are already in existence, and explaining the reasons why. And then the consumer might believe the second one. But they're going to go through 2 or 3 agents until they find, and then they're going to find the one agent who does 2 or 3 deals a year, who isn't up to speed, who hasn't seen the most recent contract changes, let alone the new commissioner rules, right? Let alone these rules. And then they're going to go, oh no, I don't know what they're talking about. And then they're going to use the famous quote, which is outlined in the complaint of, it doesn't cost the buyers anything. That's the seller's problem. Yours is free. And then they're going to write the offer. Then they're going to go through this whole process and they're going to get to closing. They're going to get a settlement statement and realize that there's no buyer broker compensation because they didn't negotiate it because they haven't been paying attention. That's where my concern is.
And just real quick to clarify for those of you who are wanting a buyer broker agreement, and Eric or Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, it's basically an upfront agreement that's available. It's always been available that I hear of some realtors and teams who require it and use it, and most who don't, that basically stipulates, hey, I'm going to get paid a minimum of this amount regardless of whatever the seller is willing to pay. So if the seller, they might sign it and say, I'm going to get a 3% commission. And if the seller only pays a 2.5% commission, then that consumer would actually pay the 0.5% difference out of pocket per that agreement.
Yeah, most people in the industry are already familiar with a listing agreement, buyer broker agreement, representation, right? It just discloses agency and it discloses agency and compensation. Yes.
It's a funny bag because most of the agents that I know usually get the buyer rep signed, at the first offer. So they've been working with these people for a while. And then as soon as they find a house for their client, they write an offer with the buyer rep as part of the signature cycle. And what we're saying right now, is getting comfortable with the conversation with the buyer up front. So we need to change that way of doing business. Well, it's funny because Scott and I got a chance to do this in Scale Mastermind the other day, and there were 4 things that was like pertinent to agents right now. It's go ahead and start handling the document with the buyer rep form up front. Go ahead and get your social media talking about the value that you're going to bring. And then you're going to sharpen the questions and conversation skills, role playing, understanding what we're talking about right now, just getting familiar with it. And then the number 4 thing, which was funny, and it'll kind of tie into what Michelle had asked earlier on the question, is our focus now is listings. And listings, being centric on listings in the state of Texas, intermediary is a thing, or in some states called dual agency. If I've got a listing and I've got somebody that comes to me and says, I don't want to deal with an agent or pay for their fees, I now have a decision to make of whether or not we have dual agency or not, or in our case, intermediary. and it's a broker's nightmare for somebody that's not experienced in that zone, right, Scott?
Right. It is. I was never a fan of it, but I know, and working with you over the last 7 years, some agents, it comes natural to them, like the water. I prefer just to represent one side or another. I think that's probably from all the bank business I did. It was just easier to, to have that one mission and that one client, and nothing wavered. I think that, there's a lot of questions. I'm loving the interaction here. Do we think that there's going to, see more people working with the listing agent? Absolutely. I also go to the simple fact that a lot of listing agents are full-time professional agents. So that, that doesn't bother me that they're going to go directly to the listing agent. What my concern is that the buyers are not going to be informed correctly and work with the wrong buyer's agent more than anything else. That is my concern.
I do love all these questions. I have to say, group, I'm proud of you all because, I wanted to told my friends how impressive our community is. And this is the most interaction I've seen in a long time. So, keep the questions coming.
Let
I know that
me
you
grab this one really quick. I'm sorry, Todd. Just to be clear,
where do you want to go?
Yeah. Just to be clear, this is still not in effect. That is correct. So again, the Missouri State class action lawsuit looks like it has a trial date for the 16th of October. That doesn't mean when it's going to be on trial. That means that the trial date set. The national one, the Mull versus NAR, that one, discovery deadlines are September, and October is for motions, and we'll be getting a date then. This is a very hot topic, and if you Google it, there's going to be 1,000 YouTube videos on it. There's going to be a lot of opinions, and I implore you to read what your MLSs are saying, right? Because they're very legalese. Be very leery of speculation. YouTube agents, which I'm one of them. If I also try mindful of this could happen, I try not to do that, right? Stay focused. As far as the LOs go, Todd, do you have more questions? I'm sorry, before I keep rambling here.
No, like I said, there's these different lawsuits out there, but one of the MLSs just changed how they're doing stuff, right? Bright, one of the bigger ones I saw, one of the articles I think that you sent over, Eric, was from Inman, was that that they're allowing listing brokers now to offer buyer brokers nothing in their MLS, and they're one of the top largest or number 2 in the country. And so I think we're going to start seeing some reverberations. Remember, they're suing the National Association of Realtors, they're suing, Remax, and they're suing Keller Williams and all these different brokerages across the country. So they're going after people with deep pockets. And I think, again, someone made a comment of it in here. It's that it's going to be really tough for our buyers, right? Eric, thank you for your service. Eric is a veteran and he's passionate about the VA loan. And we already know that, it's going to be a problem with VA. They're going to have a challenge with adding additional costs onto the loan. And so one of the commentaries I saw really talked about how one of the things that the mortgage companies are going to have to do is actually hire the lobbyists to go out there and change the rules to make it easier for people to buy homes, to actually allow financing of this commission into the loan. And so that's just one more way I think it shows it's going to take time. There's going to be a period of time where there's additional stress on the loan business and on some real estate transactions. And so I think this is just where the awareness comes in and why this conversation is so important, so that we can be preparing for it and figuring out how does this impact, business and what's already, the worst year we've had in over a decade for home sales.
Yeah. Eric, did you have something really quick?
Go for it, bud.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in there and kind of get out some key behaviors and activities for, our lender partners, this audience in particular, need to start scaling and executing and be out in front of any potential changes, right? I think it's easy to say that there will be a change. I think it's impossible to say what those changes are going to be, right? So these are the things that I think that lenders can be doing. One, be more calm than the agents, please. Agents tell themselves enough stories. They don't need to be motivated into the doomsday scenario. Identify the agents, teams, and brokerages that are solutions-based, right? If you go to an office meeting and the sales manager is screaming fear and the sky is falling and this is the end of the industry, those may no longer be your people, right? If you cannot get the agent to understand what's happening and those key behaviors that I outlined earlier, that's going to be very important. Three, stay informed, not sensationalize. Be mindful of the source of your information and the information that is being repeated. This is going to be huge, right? I personally, for this prepping, made sure and pulled all my information from the Department of Justice website. And I implore you to be the source of accurate information, accurate sources. This is no time to repeat yellow journalism or a Facebook post. Don't share memes that are not accurate. I am a meme dealer. I love them. If it is important, I absolutely double check. And I can't tell you how many memes I've wanted to share. And then all of a sudden I kind of Google and I'm like, oh man, it would have been so great to share. Don't get caught up in that. It's a very real thing and it's only going to get worse. 4, and this is huge. This is where this will separate everybody, right? Most importantly, don't be shy in helping the consumer understand why the last 4 times they've used an agent, they didn't have to pay the agent, right? Because that ties right into my last one. Role play with your preferred agents, the questions from above when I talked about the agents. Make lunch and happy hours really working lunch and happy hours. Interrupt the conversation, ask them, what is the value that you bring to the buyer? What separates you from the agent sitting next to you? It doesn't have to be to the detriment of the agent sitting next to you, but lenders have been coaching and educating agents on how to coach and educate their clients on how not to shop loans for years now. This is your moment as lenders to take the initiative and be the leader in the partnership and say, well, welcome to the world. We've been dealing with your buyers shopping us off of every internet lead for the last, 7, 8 years. Welcome to the party, pal. Let's talk about how we can work together to make sure that the buyer doesn't start looking at houses with you and then all of a sudden talks to somebody at a party. I can beat that rate. That's what lenders can do the most of. You guys have excelled. Todd has sat me down and held my head like a 6-year-old trying to talk to me saying, stop letting them respond to emails. They don't need to go. Like, how many conversations have we had on joint transactions where I'm like, dude, they clicked a link and now they want to talk to somebody else. Talk to me. How do I help that?
I told y'all I knew Scott for decades, and the first purchase that I financed was the first house that Scott sold. I didn't say it, Scott sold. What was your top year of sales? 700-800 units in 1 year?
986. I'm proud of that number.
986. I didn't want to kid. There we go. See, I blew that. Yeah. But I just love, go back and watch the part, rewind this and listen when if you're watching this live, go to the YouTube channel and it's up later and listen to that part about what just Scott said about role playing and how you can help the agents. Because number one is you need the role playing for yourself. You're good at answering those questions. Scott just highlighted that, but you're not as good as you think. I think we all need help. So I love that suggestion. What else, Eric, do you think we as lenders can be doing to be better partners or to be prepared for this?
Oh man, I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. I'm a huge proponent for loan officers being a part of my business. Give you an example. I have a loan officer that's local to Fort Worth that when I have the first interaction with buyers, they get pre-qualified through him, regardless if they're using him or not, through a text introduction. If you're not doing that, you're behind the times. You're also thinking about the point of buyer's agents need help right now. I'm going to tell you, this doesn't affect me. I've seen, like, Heather, I see your response here and it's great. I'll also say it's an opportunity. This is our moment as both agents and LOs where we can reinvent, what impact we can have on people. And regardless of the DOJ decision, what does this make us do? It makes us a whole lot better, because the buyer's agents in the world right now are, like I said before, are not getting a good rap, and probably rightfully so. I know that's, speculative, but my concern is that LOs and agents are not on the same page like they should be. Having data available, y'all, and I'm from Texas, I'm going to say the word y'all occasionally. Having data available to both the agents and the customers, having transparency for the costs and the rates real time would benefit greatly in my business. I'm going to tell you. Hey, what was that, Todd?
Use your total cost analysis, everyone. I showed Eric. So Eric's loan officer there doesn't apparently use the TCA. So I showed him ahead of this, but what a TCA looked like and how this community is passionate about that. So, but I love that you're saying that, because I know there's members of this community who don't use MortgageCoach and aren't sharing that. So I love that that's something you brought up.
I will have that conversation today, and then be the front runners to the positive change. You got to have solutions in this space. And I'm going to guarantee you something. As a coach, I've seen it numerous times in the past year, especially, is that when you start thinking like, I'm going to survive, I'm going to make this happen. Here's an example. New Zealand and I think Australia, is that right, Scott?
Yep.
They only have listing agents. I mean, you can get a buyer's agent, but the majority of the transactions that go down in the land down under do not have buyer's agents. But when they do, this is really interesting, y'all. They take the money for the earnest amount. It includes part of the commission for the buyer's agent if they're going to use one. And so they take this money and put it into the third-party account, say title company, and then they go start looking at houses. All the documents up front, all the money in a third-party account up front. There's no question they have the money for both the loan and for the agent, and it's already pre-qualified, ready to go down there. Now, it's a little bit different because they go to auction there. So there's definitely some opportunity in the United States. The buyer's agent can definitely do more for the consumer. And that's some of your questions inside of here is, will they go to listing agents? I'm going to tell you, just in the past week, I've helped 2 buyers get into homes sub 250,000. They would not have gotten houses if it weren't for the efforts of my team getting them in that house as a buyer's agent. So sit down, like Scott was saying, just sit down and have a concentrated conversation on getting to the solutions for that working lunch. You guys, it's an opportunity right now. I still think that, yes, there will be lower income buyers that don't qualify if the commission is required. I do believe there's people out there that are going to get affected, and there's not much I can do about that if that goes down. But right now, all of my processes inside of the buyer representation is being scaled up. Like, I don't know, you guys see people farm neighborhoods and do all these mega open houses. We're doing the same thing for buyer representation. You guys need to be a part of that.
So what does that look like? If I'm listening to this and I'm a loan officer, I can absolutely schedule lunch and think about the role play. I can absolutely have the conversation around, hey, how we've been, as Scott said, for years now, showing how we provide value, since Dodd-Frank has come around and since, we've got restrictions around compensation. What else, when you talk about you're going out there and doing these things for buyers, I mean, do you feel like teams are going to focus less on buyer's agents? Do you feel like the buyer's agents, like that's just a thing of the past? I mean, I got to feel that the part-time agent that Scott was talking about, who wants to represent their grandma when she buys a house, they're going to be unaware of this, and they're no longer going to get this quote unquote free 2.5 to 3% commission. So they're in theory going to, I think in most realtors' minds, get out of the business. But what else can loan officers do, specific action that they can take that either you guys are aware of, or are just all the realtors going to get in the mortgage business so that they can figure out that they can take money from somewhere else?
Well, knowing a few lenders, most lenders are always excited to make realtor money. So I'm not exactly sure why we would go the other direction. But Let me share a coaching hack, right? So when I'm trying to get the agent engagement, right, the agent to adopt scripts and objection handling, right? So my favorite way to do this, because new agents, my favorite coaching hack is to get agents into script practice and objection handling, because new agents don't know they need it, and experienced agents don't think that they need it, right? You have to remind your agent partners that scripts are not for agents. They're not even for you, right? Scripts are for the consumer, because the translation of our industry is lost until the new agents gain the nuance of experience, and then it's lost in the nuance of experienced agents as they go through the industry. We use too many industry terms. We take too much for granted that consumers don't understand, and they aren't prepared or educated enough or even practice. And hey, I don't exactly know what escrow is, right? This is going to be a huge change. We've been dealing with, I don't know what escrow is. I don't know what the difference between home insurance and home warranty is, right? We've been just trying to get agents to get that. Now we have to get an entire industry at the drop of a hat to be able to explain that, yes, the last 50 years, you haven't ever had to do it this way, but it is going to be this way moving forward. So, like I said, when you force those agent partners that you have, all the lenders on this call and all the team leads, the agents, and I've seen some comments from some agents that I know and some team leads I know, you have to remind them the script is not for them. The script is for their consumer. It forces us as agents to make sure we don't miss the details. It forces us as agents to be consistent in our message and helping the consumer go down the funnel of decision making. If loan officers can spend their time just getting their agents to accept that process, the partners that you'll have will be doing much better than the partners in the industry, or than the non-partners. So that's my plea to the room.
So let me ask you, Todd, what would you do if you knew a team was successful, a team, and what could you offer them right now as far as consult, or after this meeting, knowing what you know now, open the dialogue? What would you do with a team right now to get in front of their business?
You know, I think the biggest thing is figuring out how knowledgeable are they about this potential change, and have they really thought through how it impacts their team. And I know, because I've been in a mastermind that Scott's run, where he asked those questions of the agents in the room with regards to their value, you know, how they're different, the questions that he asked earlier. And I think it's the number one thing is the awareness and the conversation from a different perspective, right? I feel like oftentimes, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, because I have a team and I understand what my team thinks of me. Every once in a while they get tired of me talking, and I think team members every once in a while feel like they need to have that outside voice. So I think you as a loan officer can potentially come in and be that outside voice. And then I really think this key of role play, I mean, we've talked about it a bunch this year on calls that Deborah and I have done and Dave has done, where we've talked about the fact that there's just a lack of lenders practicing this, right? The thing that I've learned through going through the exactly what to say journey has been to think more about what I say before I say it. And it's changed my conversations. It's changed the way that people think. And so I just think it's come alongside of the agents, come alongside of the teams, and educate them, brainstorm with them, role play with them. And then by all means, look at yourself and make sure that you're prepared for it, because you're going to have to be part of that conversation. Is how, like, I love, Eric, what you said you're doing via text, introducing your lender, is how can you help them understand, not in a self-serving way, but how it actually serves them as the agent to integrate you sooner. And then you really script out, what does that interaction look like? How are you going to work back and forth to ensure that the consumer is educated, that consumer understands that you two as a team are better than them hopping on the internet trying to find a cheaper broker now, cheaper buyer representation, or a cheaper lender. Thoughts?
I think it's also important to remember, this is not unilateral. This is not you reaching out to buyers. The buyer's agents need to be reaching out to you too. You guys need help too. And I would love questions from you guys as to what help do you need besides getting more information about the case, because we all need that. Honestly.
Accurate, unopinionated information about the case.
Right? Nobody wants to
Yeah.
put themselves out there. But no, I mean, honestly, like LOs out there, what do you need right now? Because I honestly want to provide value to you guys too. If you guys haven't read the book, Go Giver, go get it. Bob Berg, Go Giver. It's amazing. Anyways, Todd has a few books too that I'm sure he could put out there for you.
I've interviewed Bob. He's a great guy. And the only guy that has more books than me is Mr. Gibson right there. So
I have a few, yes.
I have albums. I don't have books. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But no, I mean, I want you guys to understand this is a two-way road here. You guys need to be in relationship with people that also care about your business.
yeah, so real quick, let me just talk about what we do at the Scale Mastermind group. It was really interesting because when I met y'all at the group, your folks that have been part of Scott's World for a long time, and I got invited to be part of a mastermind, live mastermind last year. And then you all invited me to be part of this group where you're really trying to help leaders of teams grow and scale. And so what I love about those, we do 90 minutes on Thursdays, and then we record it and put it up, parts of it up on that website. But Eric, you're the moderator of it. So if you guys haven't figured it out, he's got that radio voice and he's very good at, putting his questions out there. And, again, there's 7 of us total. So 6 really smart real estate leaders. And then me, the mortgage person that they allow to show up and ask questions, pick my brain every once in a while. So I did throw the link in there earlier. I'll throw it again. If you just go to my link tree, toddbookspan.me, the top link is to join that Facebook group. It'd be a great place if you know realtors who are looking to grow and scale to invite them, because this is just one example of a conversation that they have in that group, but they're really talking about leadership, recruiting, teams, all sorts of other stuff. Anything either of you want to say on that group real quick before we kind of close out in the last 10 minutes on this other topic?
Yeah, I'll go first. The best masterminds, in my opinion, because masterminds have made my career by far. The best masterminds are the ones where everybody is right in that same window. We've got X amount of agents, we've got this channel account, that channel account, because it's a shared experience. And we get very raw. We actually all know each other personally. So there are some inside jokes, but very few. But we all bring a very authentic, this has been my experience. This is what I'm experiencing, which we really rarely go into the next week knowing what the subject is until we start the conversation. And it really kind of comes about with, I'm having this problem in recruiting. I'm having this problem in retention. And we do not hold back on asking that person, okay, well, let's ask the question behind the question behind the question. And sometimes we get a little excited just pounding on questions, but then, we all follow a certain operating system that we believe in. And like, did you build the chair? Does the chair have KPIs? Does the chair have compensation attached to the KPIs that are attached? Like, we do not hold back on that. And we've just really started putting out the videos for everybody to watch. And I think that the information, the feedback I've had from people that aren't in the group, that it's very helpful. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the group. I didn't start the group. I put everybody together in a room in October, and a few of them started getting together on a regular basis. And then I had FOMO. And then if I'm going to have FOMO, I wanted Todd to have FOMO. So then Todd and I hopped in at the last minute. There are so many great agents, so many great team leaders throughout the country that we are fortunate enough to know. And as this continues to grow, we'll be adding people, we'll be bringing in people. We want to start a practice of, how do you want to scale your business, right? So for the loan officers and for the people in the industry and that side, if you have a small team or somebody who's really, really intentional about joining a team, and you want to recommend them to our group, we would love to scale them, right? We have a flow chart, we have a series of questions that kind of goes through, why did you want to start a team? And then it's kind of like a find your own adventure, right? So if they pick this one, then we go to that next page, and then we do an assessment. And then, you know, there's no compensation. We don't charge to be in the group. We don't charge for this process. We're doing it because we all love the industry, and we do it because we love the exploratory part of the conversation. So, and then Eric absolutely is our Captain America that runs that keeps us on track, because all of us are unmedicated ADHD kids, that's for sure. So
That's absolute truth. Todd's not lying about that whole 90-minute thing. It's legitimately 90 minutes. We end up falling off after that point. Hey, I want to, by the way, good job, Scott. I couldn't have done any better on explaining what that looks like. It's a part of our passion. It's a part of just seeing, we get paid in seeing your success, honestly. Okay, so Joni has a great
Joni
question.
does have a great question.
I'm new, so I don't have a lot of buyer's agents. What do you recommend for newer LOs to get into information about agents? If they don't have a CRM that they're using, don't talk to them. Christian, that's for you.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
you can
Scott.
talk to them, but if they're not going to get a CRM, that's not a good thing, right?
There was a day that I had a spreadsheet. Oh, those are good days. No, I honestly believe that, you know, it's not a secret that we're scaling people for teams inside of Scale Mastermind. I mean, there are individual agents in that space, but the teams are going to have a leg up on all of this. So keep that in mind for when you're really putting yourself out there to interview people that you know that you want to help. This is not a pitch. You're not going to be, you know, you're not going to be bringing value to the table and letting people decide for themselves. You're going to be looking on the other. Scott's the one that actually taught me this. Interview the people that you're sitting across from. Don't pitch them. And then if you resonate in that space with the person, I'll give you a great example. Matt Pruitt is a guy that is a loan officer in our space. And he came to me 6 years ago and said, Eric, I've got twins on the way, and I've had more lunches than I care to tell you with really bad agents. And I said, what's going on? And he said, well, I've got twins on the way, and I don't know how to put food in their mouths with the amount of money that I'm making inside of being a loan officer. And to me, that spoke to me greatly, because I got 3 kids. I'm a driver. I love being in the space of innovation. So does he. And I sat down and I said, I commit to you 4 leads today. I don't go to sleep until I find those 4 leads for you. And I got them. And I had 2 in the bag already, I'll be honest, but the other 2, I just went and found. And that's the moment he goes, that guy's different. Holy crap. He just gave me 4 leads that closed, by the way. And from that moment on, he's now an investor. We have an investment company together. We have his loan officer, he's branch manager, and he has, I think, 5 real estate properties now to his name and 3 children. So it went from a relationship of I'm dying in scarcity to I can provide value and I do have a worth in this space. If he wouldn't have come to me with that strong why, by the way, Joni, if you don't have your strong why, figure it out. Go to them and explain to people why it is you're so passionate about what you do.
I'm going to tack onto that really quick. I know we're on time, but I love Joni's question so much. So Joni, a couple of other things, right? So as Eric just said, finding your why. So Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. Let me sum it up. Find people who think like you think, who believe what you believe. And when you're looking for agents to interview, read the reviews first. An agent without a lot of reviews, which I personally don't have any, because I have coaching reviews, but I don't sell anymore and I haven't sold for years. But I subscribe to the 1000-watt brand company on branding, right? So what people say about you when you're not around, that's a reputation. The logo on the back of your phone or laptop, that's just a logo. That's not a brand, that's marketing. A brand is how you make people feel. And so when you look at people's reviews, when you look at real estate agents' reviews and you're trying to figure out who to work with, and somebody has 25 reviews, absolutely print them off or put them on a PDF and look for the common words. If those common words appeal to you, then those are people who think like you think, who believe what you believe. And then that's the agents you want to bond with. And then understanding how to do this and practicing scripts with them. That's how you build those relationships. Hopefully that helps. So.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so Eric, you said to interview agents, but then you said when Matt Pruitt took you to lunch, or you took him to lunch, or whatever it was, he said, hey, help me. That wasn't necessarily interview. So what are some good questions that you think a loan officer could ask a real estate agent that they were trying to interview to learn more about them and to get that realtor to be interested in them and understand their why, just like Matt helped you understand his why?
You understanding that communication is essential for you to work on. You've got to be able to communicate clearly, and simplicity has been my focus for the past 2 years. In this case, I would simply sit down and ask questions about what the pain points are in their business and see if you could, if you have a solution for them, or would they be open for communication on a brainstorming level. Be a collaborator inside of their business, getting them to the solution that they need. And that's, and you can ask all kinds of questions inside of that space. Everybody's going to have different pain points. I would guarantee you there are going to be a top 5 pain points that every agent has right now. Not enough business, not enough database. What's some more, Scott?
Pain points for agents. My famous saying is, recessions are great for real estate values. Recessions are terrible for real estate agents. Real estate agents' biggest misunderstanding in their business and who they are is they don't know the difference between a budget and cash flow. Agents just don't understand how to make cash flow important in their world, right? $15,000 in the bank is nothing. $15,000 in monthly revenue is everything. And that is where agents need to scale up to. I'm always going to be partial to teams, and it's funny, as you were talking, Eric, and I was rereading Joni's question, it's interesting. I'm so new, I don't have a lot of buyer's agents. And if we go back to these comments are so great. I can't thank you guys enough. There was another comment. So buyers are going to go directly to the listing agents. I think it's important for LOs now to not ignore the listing agents. A lot of listing agents are going to be representing a lot of buyers moving forward. Listing agents sometimes don't want to talk about scripts, right? They're like, I know what I'm doing. That's where they get lost in the nuance. They know what they're doing. The buyers that they're working with don't know what they're doing. That's the leap. If LOs can help agents understand the leap that, yes, you've done 986 deals, you know the nuance of our industry so well, but the industry is having a fundamental change that's going to require them to have a very open mind. Be curious, right? Learn how to overcome objections, learn how to educate somebody, right? My biggest problem with mentors will say, come to me with your problems. That's not teaching somebody something, that's deal doctoring. And yes, that has a place in a relationship between a team lead or a broker and an agent, but it does not have a place in education. And that's the difference between a coach. So sorry on the rant, my bad.
No, I'm sad to see that we're hitting our time, and I know you guys probably have hard stops. So what do you want to close out with, Eric? And then Scott, if you want to say anything additional, and then I'll kind of give you LOs my action plan du jour.
I want to say thanks first off for allowing us to be the front runners inside of the space of seeing what collaboration looks like. You brought on 2 agents / coaches that can, talk about a very limited bandwidth of knowledge on the other side of the fence. You guys can now understand what it looks like from our point of view, but I want to know what it looks like to be a part of you guys too. And regardless of the DOJ decision, this is a time to reinvent and provide real impact to the customer. You guys can assist in that and or run it with the people that you want to work with. So go and make decisions, and don't operate in scarcity. Do it in a way that is positive. And the biggest bang for the buck for the people right now is figuring out what's on that menu that we talked about before. What do they want to order from? If it's not on the menu, they don't have a clue that it's available. So you need to be very clear with what it looks like for cost, for upfront real-time transparency, the software that Todd was talking about, all of the things that we can use to get a better name, not only for buyers agents, but for LOs too.
I'll be quick. please be more calm than your agents. Don't excite them. They can excite themselves. 2, be solutions-based, be accurate in the information you're providing them. You can find our information. We're going to be everywhere. I'm super easy to find on social media. Never fear reaching out, but remind them if they're new, they need to learn the nuances of the business. They need to do script practicing to help their clients. If they're experienced, they need to forget some of the nuances of the business, and they need to practice their script practicing for the buyers, for the sellers. That's where you can make an impact.
Well, I am super grateful for both of you, not just for being here today, but for having the impact that you both had on me over this past year. Scott, you for a few decades. And I think from a community perspective, you got great advice on actions you can take, right? How to be collaborative with your agents. But I think there's some easy things here, right? The number one thing is refer them over to the Scale Mastermind. Number 2 thing is to engage in a conversation with them around this issue. Are they aware of it? And then explore it with them and how it may impact them, not you, how it may impact them and the consumer together, right? Think through that, role play it as discussed. Be curious, right? As Eric said, hey, get together with them and look at those things. And then right there at the end, they drop the knowledge bomb of being a better buyer coach to the listing agents. You all know you should be making your listing agent calls when you're going in a transaction, and what a better way to prove to them that you can help guide a buyer through a transaction and make their job easier. You should be doing that already. If you're not, let's start. But bottom line, as always, on behalf of Dave, the whole crew at Trust Engine, myself, the Win by Noon crew, super grateful for you all watching this. Make sure that you like it and share it if you're watching the YouTube channel. Bottom line is this is an easy easy conversation for you to share with your agents, for you to gain traction because you're adding value to them. So thanks, Eric. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everyone in the community. Thanks, Paul, behind the scenes. Appreciate y'all. And I'll see you guys on Thursday.
Thank you, guys. You bet.
Take care.